Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling smaller than before it began? You spoke your truth, you defended your point, you tried to stay calm, and yet, when it was over, a strange heaviness remained. It wasn't about what was said, but about what it took from you. That invisible knot in your throat, that quiet ache behind your calm expression. It wasn't weakness, it was exhaustion. The exhaustion of trying to be heard in a world that only listens to noise. Maybe you know that kind of room where people speak loudly, interrupt, laugh over others, and confuse arrogance with intelligence. Maybe you've told yourself that to be respected, you need to speak louder, react faster, defend yourself harder. But what if everything you've been taught about strength is wrong? What if true power isn't in the voice that dominates the room, but in the one that doesn't need to? Silence has always been misunderstood. People see it as absence, when in truth, it's presence. The kind of presence that doesn't need validation, doesn't need to win, doesn't need to explain. Because silence, when chosen, is not surrender. It's control. It's the invisible edge that unsettles those who depend on noise to feel powerful. There's a moment, a quiet one, when you realize this. When you understand that reacting doesn't make you stronger, it makes you predictable. That defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you is not noble, it's energy wasted. And that silence, instead of being the language of defeat, can become the language of authority. This is not about staying quiet out of fear. It's about choosing quiet because you no longer need to prove anything. Because you've discovered that you don't need to win arguments. You only need to win your peace. And peace doesn't come from being right. It comes from being free. In a society obsessed with speaking, perhaps the most radical act is to listen, not to others, but to yourself. Because within that silence lives something ancient, a kind of wisdom that doesn't shout, doesn't rush, and doesn't need to be understood to be true. It's the wisdom of still waters, of calm storms, of those who know that strength doesn't announce itself, it simply is. So if you've ever felt small in the noise, if you've mistaken your calm for weakness or your restraint for fear, this is your reminder. Silence is not the absence of power, it's its purest form. Have you ever mistaken your silence for weakness, when maybe it was actually your greatest form of power? Let me know below. Why do we feel this burning need to respond, to defend, to correct, to prove that we're right? It's almost automatic. Someone challenges us, and before we even breathe, the mind rushes to gather words like weapons. We feel a tightening in the chest, the pulse quickens, and we prepare for battle. But if you stop and look closely, you'll notice something beneath that reaction. Fear. Not fear of the other person, but fear of being seen as small, as wrong, as weak. Since childhood, we've been taught that silence means defeat, that staying calm is surrender, that if we don't fight back, we'll be forgotten. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if the strongest voice in the room is the one that doesn't rush to defend itself? Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once described this pattern as the slave morality of the ego, the endless need to justify one's worth in front of others. The ego can't bear uncertainty. It can't stand silence, because silence forces it to face itself, and that's where its weakness lies. When you feel the need to prove yourself, it isn't your higher self speaking. It's your wounded self, the one terrified of being unseen. Every time you argue to be understood, you're unconsciously saying, "Please tell me I matter." But when you begin to see through this illusion, a shift happens. You realize that your worth was never up for negotiation. Carl Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but grows." When you resist silence, when you resist stillness, you strengthen the very insecurity you're trying to hide. The ego thrives on noise. It feeds on reactions, on comparison, on proving. And every time you react, you feed it again. But imagine stepping out of that cycle. Imagine being in a room full of chaos and not feeling the urge to respond. Imagine hearing judgment and feeling no need to explain. That isn't detachment, that's power. Because when you stop needing to win, you've already won. Silence doesn't mean you have nothing to say. It means you've learned that words aren't always the path to truth. Sometimes, truth lives in restraint, in the pause between breaths, in the calm refusal to play the same old game. The next time someone challenges you, remember this: you're not required to prove your truth to anyone. You don't need to rush to explain your heart to those committed to misunderstanding it. True confidence isn't loud, it's quiet, grounded, and unshaken. The ego seeks to dominate the world through sound. The soul does it through stillness. And once you recognize the difference, you'll begin to reclaim something sacred, your inner peace. Because the one who controls their reaction controls their reality. There comes a moment in life when words begin to lose their meaning. You realize that no matter how carefully you explain yourself, those who wish to misunderstand you always will. And in that moment of exhaustion, when your arguments no longer matter, a different kind of power begins to rise. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's the quiet strength of someone who no longer needs to prove. Nietzsche called this being the Bermensch, the one who has transcended the fragile need for validation. The Bermensch doesn't react to the world, he shapes it in silence. He doesn't rush to defend his truth, because he is his truth. He doesn't seek to win arguments, because his presence alone wins them. This is the silence of the warrior, not the silence of fear, but of awareness. He observes everything, absorbs everything, but reveals nothing. He doesn't waste energy explaining what doesn't need explanation. He knows that every word given to misunderstanding is energy stolen from creation. To most, silence feels like defeat. But to those who understand power, silence is a weapon, invisible yet devastating. When the warrior remains still, others reveal themselves. Their anxiety, their ego, their insecurities, all begin to surface. While they talk to be seen, he watches to understand. While they defend, and in that calm observation, he commands control. Nietzsche believed that silence is not emptiness, it's authority. The world expects reaction. It feeds on your emotional surrender. But when you don't give it, the power dynamic shifts. You become unpredictable, and the unpredictable are always feared. The silent warrior doesn't need the noise of validation. His silence speaks for him. It speaks through the steadiness in his eyes, through his lack of rush, through his calm in chaos. Because mastery doesn't shout, it simply exists, and its presence alone unsettles the insecure. Think of the most powerful moments in your life. Were they made of words or of silence? The pause before a truth you didn't need to speak. The calm after realizing you didn't need to argue. The peace that came not from winning, but from letting go. This is not weakness. It's self-command. And when you reach that point, when you no longer need the last word, something extraordinary happens. You stop being reactive and start being radiant. You stop playing small and start walking as if your stillness could bend the world around you. Think about it. When was the last time your silence spoke louder than any argument could? Write that moment in the comments. Someone out there might need your reminder. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of truth. When you stop reacting, something profound happens. People begin to face their own reflection. They hear the echo of their insecurities in the quiet you leave behind. Because most people don't talk to communicate, they talk to hide. They fill the air with noise to cover the silence within them. The moment you choose silence, you take that disguise away. You hold up a mirror, and suddenly, they are forced to confront what they've been avoiding all along. Their own noise, their own fear. This is why silence feels so unsettling to others. It exposes them. Modern psychology calls this projection anxiety. When someone expects a reaction and doesn't receive one, their brain enters uncertainty mode. The amygdala, the part of the brain that detects threat, activates. And what do? They project. They fill the void you leave with assumptions. Are they judging me? Did I say something wrong? Do they think I'm weak? The truth is, your silence isn't attacking them, it's revealing them. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Silence is that mirror. It reflects their irritation, their fear of not being in control, their panic of being unseen. And in that moment, the one who stays silent holds all the power, not because they dominate, but because they refuse to play. Manipulators hate silence for this exact reason. They rely on your reaction to survive. They thrive on emotional feedback, your anger, your explanations, your defenses. But when you give them nothing, they collapse into their own chaos. You stop being their supply, and their control dissolves. This doesn't mean you should suppress your voice. It means you should choose it wisely. There's a vast difference between silence born of fear and silence born of mastery. One hides, the other holds. One trembles, the other commands. Every time you choose stillness when provoked, you teach your nervous system that you are safe, that you don't need to rush, defend, or justify. That is emotional sovereignty. It's not about dominance over others. It's about dominion over yourself. Because when you can remain calm in chaos, your silence becomes sacred. It's no longer passive, it's potent. It cuts through illusion and demands truth without ever raising its voice. So, remember this. When your silence makes someone uncomfortable, it's not because you're wrong, it's because their mask is slipping. And in that mirror you hold, truth has already begun to speak by now. You've seen that silence is not weakness, it's awareness. But awareness alone is not enough. To truly master silence, you must learn to use it intentionally, not as escape, but as precision. Because silence, when guided by purpose, becomes a weapon sharper than any word. Imagine a conversation like a battlefield. Every reaction, every defense, every explanation is a move that exposes your position. Most people rush to attack, to prove, to respond. But the masters of silence, they wait. They let the noise reveal the weaknesses of others before they make a single move. The first weapon of silence is restraint. When everything in you screams to respond, don't. That pause, that one heartbeat of stillness, is your power gathering itself. Because every time you hold your reaction, you take back control from your emotions. That momentary stillness rewires your nervous system, teaching it that peace is stronger than impulse. The second weapon is observation. When others speak, listen, not to reply, but to see. Watch their tone, their breathing, their nervous laughter between words. Hidden inside those details are their fears, their contradictions, their truth. Silence sharpens perception. While others are busy performing, you are decoding. The third weapon is timing. When you let silence linger, it becomes tension, and tension is influence. People fill silence because they can't bear uncertainty. The longer you hold it, the more control you gain. A single glance, a slow inhale, a calm pause before a short response. These are not passive gestures. They are invisible choreography. The fourth weapon is unpredictability. When you no longer respond in the ways people expect, they lose the script. They can't predict your next move, and that mystery disturbs them. You become magnetic, not because you speak more, but because you speak less, with purpose. Your silence stops being absence. It becomes gravity. This is not manipulation. It's presence. True power doesn't need to dominate others. It needs only to master itself. Strategic silence isn't about withholding truth. It's about revealing it only when it matters, and never when it's begged for. In a world addicted to instant reaction, those who pause before they speak become timeless. The voice of wisdom does not rush, it waits. And in that waiting, it gathers force. So when life tempts you to defend, to argue, to justify, remember, the one who speaks first may be heard, but the one who waits is understood, and the one who can hold silence already commands the room. Not all silence is sacred. Sometimes the quiet you keep is not a sign of mastery, but of surrender. There is a silence that liberates, and another that chains you, one that guards your peace, and one that devours it. Many of us have mistaken avoidance for wisdom. We tell ourselves it's not worth it, when what we mean is I'm afraid to speak. We convince ourselves that we're maintaining harmony, when in truth, we're slowly dissolving one unspoken truth at a time. This is the silence of submission, the one Nietzsche warned against. It is not the silence of strength. It is the silence of domestication. When you swallow your anger to keep others comfortable, you are teaching them that your boundaries don't matter. When you let disrespect pass unchallenged in the name of peace, you are silently signing your own invisibility. That kind of silence is not noble. It's learned helplessness disguised as virtue, and the world, sharp as it is, knows how to recognize that. Manipulators, egocentrics, emotional predators, they sense it like wolves, smell fear. They understand that you won't fight back, so they feed on your restraint. They occupy your space, dominate your narrative, and you keep quiet, thinking you are wise. But that quiet is not wisdom, it's erasure. Nietzsche called this the slave morality, the internalized belief that submission equals goodness, that enduring equals nobility. It's the morality of the tamed, those who were taught to shrink so others could feel large. And it hides behind phrases like, I don't want drama, it's fine, I'll let it go. But each letting go without resolution becomes another piece of yourself abandoned. The silence of fear drains you. It doesn't protect your peace, it poisons it. Because peace without boundaries is not peace, it's paralysis. And every time you choose false calmness over self-respect, you teach your spirit to bow when it was born to stand to master silence. You must first confront this shadow within it, the silence that keeps you small, the silence that says stay invisible, stay agreeable, stay quiet. You must unlearn the version of you that mistook endurance for enlightenment, because real growth doesn't mean suppressing your truth. It means knowing when and how to speak it. So ask yourself, have you been silent to stay strong, or to stay safe? Has your quiet been power, or permission for others to cross your lines? Reflect honestly, when was the last time your silence protected peace? And when did it protect someone else's comfort at the cost of your own? Comment below with, I choose silence that empowers, not silence that erases. After every silence that broke you, comes one that builds you. This is the moment where quiet transforms from a wound into a weapon, from submission into sacred strength, because true silence doesn't shrink you, it centers you. It's not the absence of your voice, it's the alignment of your being when you stop reacting, not from fear, but from clarity. That's not weakness, that's evolution. You are no longer silenced by the world. You are simply choosing your moments with precision. The same stillness that once buried you now becomes the stage on which your power stands unshaken. This rebirth begins when you realize you owe no explanations for your peace. You are not responsible for correcting every misunderstanding, nor for translating your truth to those who refuse to listen. Your energy is sacred, not a public debate. Every word you withhold is not repression, it's refinement. You are no longer hiding, you're preserving. Presence is what replaces the noise, and presence speaks louder than any argument ever could. It's in your posture, your gaze, your breath. It's in the way you enter a room without trying to dominate it, and yet everyone feels your gravity. That's the silence of mastery, the silence that speaks. People will start to notice the difference. They won't understand why your calm unsettles them, or why your quiet confidence feels heavier than their loud opinions. They'll sense your boundaries without you having to announce them. Because true power doesn't demand respect, it emanates it. The silence doesn't suppress emotion, it channels it. It's the stillness after the storm, where you no longer need validation to feel valuable. You stop performing for attention and start existing in authority. This is when you truly become untouchable, not because you resist the world, but because you rise above its noise. Carl Jung called this the integration of the shadow. When you embrace your darkness, your anger, your pain, and merge it with your wisdom, you no longer fight your silence, you become it. You wear it like armor, soft but impenetrable. Your stillness becomes your statement. Your peace becomes your proof. From this place, words regain their power. When you speak, it's not reaction, it's revelation. Each word you choose carries the weight of intention, the rhythm of awareness, the echo of control. You no longer try to be heard, you simply are. Take a moment, breathe. Who are you when you stop performing, defending, and proving? Comment below. I am the presence behind the silence. There comes a moment when silence stops being a choice and becomes your essence. It's no longer something you practice. It's something you are. You've walked through the noise, the manipulation, the false peace. You've faced your reflection in stillness. Now, you stand at the threshold of mastery, where your silence no longer hides your voice. It is your voice. This is the silence that commands without words. The silence that shifts a room the moment you walk in. The silence that holds its own gravity, not because it seeks control, but because it is control. It's not the silence of fear, nor the silence of ego. It's the silence of presence, a stillness so profound that it unsettles illusions, exposes lies, and reminds the world that wisdom doesn't shout. It resonates. You've learned that silence is not surrender. It's sovereignty. It's not submission. It's strength. It's the art of being untouchable in a world addicted to noise. It's the confidence of someone who no longer needs to convince anyone, not even themselves. Think of every storm you've endured, every argument you walked away from, every time you chose peace over reaction. You weren't losing, you were learning. You were building the inner fortress of calm that no chaos can invade. The strongest souls are not those who win the loudest battles. They are the ones who master the invisible ones within. Because when your silence becomes conscious, you no longer play the game. You become the ground on which it's played. And those who once tried to provoke you now feel powerless before your calm. Silence, in its highest form, is creation itself. It is the pause before art, the breath before truth, the stillness before transformation. Everything great, every idea, every act of courage is born from it. And now, so are you. So, as you step out into your world again, remember this. Let your silence not be the sound of suppression, but the echo of power. Let your calm be louder than their noise. Let your presence speak for you long after you've left the room. Because those who master silence don't follow the world, they reshape it. If these words resonated with you, if you felt the shift, even slightly, pause right now. Ask yourself, what kind of silence do I want to live by? The one that hides, or the one that heals? If your answer is strength, awareness, and transformation, then this space was made for you. Subscribe to Echoes of Healing. Join a community that listens between the words, where philosophy meets emotion and silence becomes a language of power. Because your journey into self-mastery has only just begun, and the next step awaits in the quiet.